Thank you.
Buenas noches. Good evening, everyone here and at home. I'm Ricardo Maldonado, Associate Director of the 92nd Street Wise Unterberg Poetry Center, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's readings by Kaveh Akbar and John Murillo. Akbar will be introduced by Angel Nafis. Murillo will be introduced by Terence Hayes. Before we begin, a reminder of upcoming poetry readings by Alice Oswald, Quan Berry, and Ocean Vuong, Martín Espada and Raquel Salas Rivera, as well as special evenings on Clifton's Generations with Aisa Davis and Tracy K. Smith, and Ann Carson's The Glass Essay with Maggie Siff. All of these will take place in person at the Y and transmitted online. Please visit our website for your tickets. After tonight's reading, join us for an informal signing in the lounge to your left. Books will be available for purchase at that time, courtesy of Postman Books. Angel Nafis is the author of Black Girl Mansion. She is the founder and curator of the Greenlight Bookstore Poetry Salon. In 2011, she represented New York City at both the Women of the World Poetry Slam and the National Poetry Slam. In 2016, she was the recipient of the Ruth Lilly and Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Poetry Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation. And in 2017, she was awarded a Creative Writing Fellowship from the NEA. Terence Hayes' most recent publications include American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin, which won the Hurston Wright Award for Poetry and was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award, the National Book Award, the T.S. Eliot Prize, and the Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award, and To Float in the Space Between, Drawings and Essays and Conversations with Etheridge Knight, which was the winner of the Poetry Foundation's 2019 Pegasus Award for Poetry Criticism, and a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award in Criticism. He is professor of English at NYU. And now please join me in welcoming Angel as she introduces Kaveh.
Hello, how you doing? Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Ramadan Kareem and happy Monday. We did it. We're here. You can clap. You did it. You did it. We did it. I wasn't sure if it was going to happen for me, if I was going to be able to do it. I live in Brooklyn. I'm very far from it right now. But I was like, oh, putting on my leather jacket like, oh. Clothes, otherwise known as like adult drag. It's like terrible. So I'm so happy to be here. So happy to be sort of looking at you. There's like, the light is kind of weird, but I can see your eyes. This is the first, I think, in-person event that I have been in like 2 years in the city. So and I have to say, I'm uniquely qualified for this exact situation. My qualifications they're like a handful. It's like 3 of them. One is talking about poems. 2 is talking about people I love. The 3rd is neither here nor there. But the 2 are meeting right now. This is like the role I was born to do, so please excuse me while I gather myself. Your only job is to, when I say either Kaveh Akbar, when I say that, like clap, so Kaveh Akbar. Beautiful, beautiful. And when I say Pilgrim Bell, Pilgrim Bell's also absolutely. Listen, it's been a while, but we're back. I have my role, you have your role. We're doing it. I'm here to introduce and to talk a little bit about our friend Kaveh Akbar. Listen, they should be paying you. You're the one killing it. Okay, so it was a lot getting here. I'm sure for all of us individually, thinking specifically about Kav, he only 2 weeks ago had COVID, which I don't know, like actual, like the rumors are true, like actual COVID. But he's here in the most Kaveh fashion possible. I don't know how many of you know him even slightly personally, but if he feels like he has a duty that needs to get done, he gonna be there. He gonna heal his fucking self from COVID. He gonna get on a flight. He's gonna put on a really cute cobalt like jacket blazer thing and come read poems to you. So I'm gonna read the sort of like boring intro that you need to know, because he didn't work his ass off for like a decade just for me to like say some weird stuff about him and bring him on. I'm gonna read the official sort of qualified CV moment, and then we're gonna veer into just like a love bomb, a love parade. Kaveh Akbar's poems appear in the New Yorker, the New York Times, Paris Review, Best American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. I don't know what your paywall situation is, but I really recommend it. It's really worth it. His second full-length volume of poetry, Pilgrim Bell, was published by Grey Wolf August 2021. His debut, Calling a Wolf, is out with Alice James and in Penguin in the UK. He's the author of the chapbook, Portrait of the Alcoholic, published in 2016 by Sibling Rivalry Press. In 2022, this year, shout out, Penguin Classics is going to publish a new anthology edited by Kaveh called The Penguin Book of Spiritual Verse, 100 Poets on the Divine. In 2020, Kaveh was named Poetry Editor of the Nation. He's the recipient of honors, including multiple Pushcart Prizes, which no one wins. You get nominated, but like no one wins them. You know what I'm saying? Like he's out here winning the ones that aren't won. He went to Civitella Raineri, the Foundation Fellowship, which is that castle in Italy that I'm legitimately, it's like the one thing I'm kind of not happy for him. I'm like, I want to go to a castle in Italy. Kaveh was born at Tehran, Iran, and teaches at Purdue University and in the low residency MFA programs, Randolph College and Warren Wilson College. In 2014, Kaveh founded Dive Dapper, a home for dialogues with the most vital voices in American poetry. And with Sarah Kay and Claire Schwartz, he wrote a weekly column for the Paris Review called Poetry RX, which is sort of like a advice column filtering the poems that you need towards you. In the introduction of the forthcoming Penguin anthology, Kaveh writes, "The mission of this anthology is to organize these connections, not to gather poets around geography or race or gender or belief or historical period, but instead around a shared privileging of the spirit and its attendant curiosities. In this way, readers might begin to hear a kind of conversation, one that has been ongoing for 43 centuries and counting, a conversation which countless young poets begin whispering every day. A shared privileging of the spirit and its attendant curiosities. For me, that's what Pilgrim Bell does. Pilgrim Bell. Listen, I'm not playing with y'all. Pilgrim Bell in those lines, yes. A place where spirit and mercy live and contain an equal conversation between dirt and sky. The only winner in that conversation is the thread who knows it touches both. They say it's not faith if you can hold it in your hands, but I suspect the opposite may be true. The real faith passes first through the body like an arrow. Consider our whole galaxy stacked in place by a single star. I fear we haven't said nearly enough about that. Kaveh is a PhD who understands there's nothing worse than a know-it-all. Like, spill that ancient tea, but please bore me not with virtue. What is below the underdog? That is the place that Kaveh writes from. People call on Kaveh both personally and in poems because his wisdom is itself a degree of love. Not flimsy, text me back love, but there is no text love. There is no back love. There is no me love. Only that merciful abyss from which we all spring, that merciful abyss from which we surrender our bodies to return to. You can clap for me. I feel great about it. In How Prayer Works, he writes, "We prayed together as we had done thousands of times, rushing ablutions over the sink, laying out our Janamis out toward the window facing the elm, which one summer held an actual crow's nest full of baby crows, fuzzy, black-beaked, fruit. They were miracles we did not think to treasure. Here is that love I speak about. Can you believe it? I'm not describing a sad person. He's laughing back there, I just heard him. There are no real saints in Pilgrim Bell. It speaks of and from a poetics and a poet tongue that is antsy with adoration. Gluttonous rhapsody, a gimme gimme lyric, the inevitable clarity born from every consequence of the sun. As a reader of these poems, I am an elated accomplice and a weeping newborn. Fellow wolfheads know, which is what I'm calling people who like calling Wolf a wolf. Fellow wolfheads know. Students at Purdue and Randolph and Warren Wilson know. Anonymous drunks know. Friends know. America might not know, but that's another story. Twitter might not know, but that's a different story. Regardless, and still, here he is, all the while getting up, resplendent, in cahoots with the source, author of Calling a Wolf, our brother, dark on both sides, makes a window into a mirror, our champion, every person here small enough to fit in his eye, my best friend, Capricorn King, most patient cat dad, patient and wide, first sound I ever heard. Please give it up for Kaveh Akbar.
Jesus Christ. I need like an hour to gather myself real quick. That's my best friend. You should be so lucky. Thank you all so much for being here. I can't see you at all, but I can kind of hear you. So I trust that you're all there. That was... I'm truly like, I'm bowled over. I'm also, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for letting me be here. Thank you, Angel. I love you so much. I feel so, so, so grateful to get to be alive at the same time as you and to just sit at your feet. I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited to hear John, who is one of my favorite poets, truly, his newest book. When it came out, the first time I read it, I was like, this is going to win all the things, and then it won a bunch of the things, and I was like, this is like the poetry universe actually doing the right, like it actually got it right, he's just demotic and sacred too, demotic, not demonic, demotic, and sacred too, and I love his work so much. It's, I feel unworthy both, lyrically and sartorially, I'll just read some poems and try to gather myself. Thank you. This is called The Miracle. It orbits the delivery of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad was illiterate, and like most people in most times and places in the world, he was illiterate. And the precipitating miracle of the faith was the gift of literacy being given to the Prophet Muhammad. This is called The Miracle. Also, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm fasting, or I just stopped fasting. Like iftar just hit. Shout out to anyone else who's fasting, but iftar just hit, and so I drank but I'm a little mealy mouthed. So we'll agree to continue loving each other despite that. No, I have. In fact, it has a picture of you and Shira on it, but I have one. Yeah. I'm gonna read poems, I swear. But I also always feel like, the water sip at a poetry reading is like secretly all about power. Like, like I'm just gonna like make everyone watch me be an animal. Okay, I'm going to read poems now and stop. This is called The Miracle. Gabriel seizing the illiterate man alone and fasting in a cave and commanding, read. The man saying, I can't. Gabriel squeezing him tighter, commanding, read. The man gasping, I don't know how. Gabriel squeezing him so tight he couldn't breathe, squeezing out the air of protest, the air of doubt, crushing it out of his crushable human body, saying, read in the name of your Lord who created you from a clot. And thus, literacy, revelation. It wasn't until Gabriel squeezed away what was empty in him that the prophet could be filled with miracle. Imagine the emptiness in you, the vast cavities you have spent your life trying to fill with fathers, mothers, lovers, language, drugs, money, art, praise, and imagine them gone. What's left? Whatever you aren't, which is what makes you. A house useful not because it's floorboards or ceilings or walls, but because the empty space between them. Gabriel isn't coming for you. If he did, would you call him Jibril or Gabriel like you are here? Who is this even for? One crisis at a time. Gabriel isn't coming for you. Cheese on a cracker, a bit of salty fish. Somewhere a man is steering a robotic plane into murder. Robot from the Czech robota, meaning forced labor. Murder labor, forced. He never sees the bodies which are implied by their absence, like feathers on a paper bird. Gabriel isn't coming for you. In the absence of cloud parting, trumpet blaring clarity, what? More living, more money, lazy sex, mother, brother, lover. You travel and bring back silk scarves, a bag of chocolates for you don't know who yet. Someone will want them. Deliver them to an empty field. You fall asleep facing the freckle on your wrist. Somewhere a woman presses a button that locks metal doors with people behind them. The locks are useful to her because there is an emptiness on the other side that holds the people's lives in place. She doesn't know the names of the people. Anonymity is an ancillary feature of the locks. Ancillary from the Latin ancilla, meaning servant, an emptiness to hold all their living. You created from a clot. Gabriel isn't coming for you. You too full to eat. You too locked to door, too cruel to wonder. Gabriel isn't coming. You too loved to love, too speak to hear, too wet to drink. No, Gabriel, you too pride to weep. You too play to still. You too high to come. No, Gabriel won't be coming for you. Too fear to move. You too pebble to stone, too saddle to horse, too crime to pay. Gabriel, no, not anymore. You too gone to save, too bloodless to martyr, too diamond to charcoal, too nation to earth. You brute, cruel pebble, Gabriel, God of man, no, cheese on a cracker, mercy, mercy. Angel read the end of this poem. This isn't a poem I often read, but maybe it's nice for today. This is called How Prayer Works. Tucked away in our tiny bedroom, so near each other, the edge of my prayer rug covered the edge of his. My brother and I prayed. We were 18 and 11 maybe, or 19 and 12. He was back from college where he built his own computer and girls kissed him on the mouth. I was barely anything, just wanted to be left alone to read and watch The Simpsons. We prayed together as we had done thousands of times, rushing ablutions over the sink, laying our janamazes out toward the window, facing the elm, which one summer held an actual crow's nest full of baby crows, fuzzy, black-beaked fruit. They were miracles we did not think to treasure. My brother and I hurried through the sloppy postures of praise, quiet as the light pooling around us. The room was so small, our twin bed took up nearly all of it, and as my brother, tall and endless, moved to kneel, his foot caught the coiled brass doorstop, which issued forth a long, loud brong. The noise crashed around the room like a wet bullet shredding through porcelain. My brother bit back a smirk, and I tried to stifle a snort, but solemnity ignored our pleas. We erupted, laughter quaking out our faces into our bodies and through the floor. We were hopeless, laughing at our laughing, our glee an infinite rope fraying off in every direction. It's not that we forgot God or the martyrs or the prophet's holy word. Quite the opposite, in fact. We were boys built to love what was right in front of our faces. My brother and I draped across each other, laughing tears into our prayer rugs. Thanks. One of the things that I did today, was I didn't touch them with my fingertips. One of the things that I did today, a poet who was very, 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 very important to me was the poet Jean Valentine, both as a poet and as a human being. She was amazing at being both of those things. And she has a bench now that you can go sit on, and it's like near the apartment where she used to live. So I wanted to share a Jean poem with you all, if you'll oblige me. This is not a poem that I wrote, but I don't even know if I would say it's my favorite Jean Valentine poem, but it is the Jean Valentine poem that I probably think about most often. It's called I Came to You. I came to you, Lord, because of the fucking reticence of the world. No, not reticence, not the world. Oh, Lord, come. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. Lord, come. We were sad on the ground. There's that moment where you can hear her giving up on the poem as she's writing the poem, right? No, that rhetorical hesitancy. No, not reticence, not the world. Oh. And then she's just like, Lord, come, Lord, come. It's my kingdom for 100th of that. Okay, I'm going to read some newer things that aren't in Pilgrim Bell. Are you guys okay? I can see like John and Angel, but I truly cannot see like past you. But so you guys are there. You guys are. I wasn't like trying to fish, but like I just, like if you guys all like up and left, I would truly, literally have no idea. Okay, this is called What I Want. To make with a font or a life something endless as you, for you. A font is a finite set of shapes. A life is a finite set of shapes. Pink glass, blue bullets. I point at what I want with my lips. What I want? The prosperity of the wicked for the just. To be just and prosperous. A man in a uniform presses a hot iron to a bullet set on a naked man's chest. The bullet is finite. The naked man is finite. Pointed lips and red glass, which is a liquid. It flows over time. Liquid uniforms, wicked font. What I want is time, endless as you, and terrible as all this. This isn't a new poem, but I wrote it for Pilgrim Bell, and my editor was like, maybe not that one, and I really like it. It's about a worm who can't stop laughing. I was reading Augustine's Confessions. I'm Muslim, but I'm also sort of like a spiritual magpie. And in Augustine's Confessions, there's this moment where he's like, we must admit that even a crying man is better than a laughing worm. And I was like, must we? And so I wrote a poem about a happy worm who can't stop laughing. And I really like it, but it'll never be in a book. This is called In Praise of the Laughing Worm. Lacking lungs, it laughs through its skin, each pore laughing, it bores into the dead's dead, laughing through their solemnity, tunneling its name across their dust. Lusty as a pharaoh, the laughing worm tangles around its beloved. They laugh together, traveling up to the surface. They laugh, saying, it is so strange that sun is, that wind does. And rain? How to even speak about rain? They laugh together like a mangled theory, like cold fingers crossed, then pull apart. The beloved stops laughing. Its body rolls into a guilty coil. It says, the dead who fed me yesterday weren't laughing. Says, they never learned what they came here to learn. Slowly, the beloved skulks back into the soil, its mineral syntax, but the laughing worm just laughs, inches forward, gentle enough to button a shirt. Gleaming like a beaver eye, the laughing worm crawls on past ant hills, bullfrogs, wild radish, thinking nothing that could be put into words, laughing with each of its 5 hearts. I think maybe the fatal flaw of that poem is that you have to know that worms have 5 hearts. I'm just kind of like reading it out loud now. I'm hearing it. Okay. This is a poem. This is another poem by a not me person. This poet named Hannah Emerson has this new book out with Milkweed called The Kissing of Kissing. And it's through this new series that Milkweed is doing. I don't know her at all, but it's through this new series that Milkweed is doing with like neurodivergent artists. And Hannah's a non-speaking poet. But I read this book, non-speaking autistic poet. But I read this book, and it's like Molly Bloom's soliloquy and like a little bit of Ross Gay and like Gertrude Stein. It's like so good, and it sounds so different than anything. And like I'm not on the thing, so I don't know if anyone's talking about it or not. But like in my like feeble attempt to like let people know, her name is Hannah the Palindromic Way, and then Emerson like Ralph Waldo. The book is called The Kissing of Kissing, and this is a poem from that book called How the World Began. Please try to cut yourself open to find the blood that is the color of the molten rock that is in all of us. Yes, please try to help the world by heaving your hatred on the flames that burn in your town. Yes, yes. Please try to melt. Yes, yes. Please try to grow into the stream of molten life. Yes, yes. Please try to help us make kissing volcano that loves with way of floating hell that we are now. Yes, yes, yes. Please get that this is how the world began. Yes, yes. Again, that poet's name is not Kaveh Akbar. That was Hannah Emerson. And the book is called The Kissing of Kissing. maybe I'll just read a couple more poems, and then I'm very, very eager to hear John. As I'm sure you all are as well. I forgot what it's like to have that power. Okay. I'll read a very, very, very new poem. This is called Poem with No People in It. Someone told me to write a poem without people in it. Get behind me, English. Get bigger, little flame. Sienna candle burning on the porch. A lovely mantle. Get waving, little flag. Get real money bags. Your lion pelt is wilting. There is such a thing as a pistachio tree. It makes me want to faint, to splinter apart like a cross. Get hammered, little trimeter. Get shattered, little self. There are crows in the wood and the crows. The flag wants me fussy. The mayor wants to turn me out. Ice cream drips off the cone. Gravity pulls spit from the cheek. Here are the things you quell. Hunger, panic, revolution, behead the tulip, behead the prince. This is a poem with no people in it. Thanks. Maybe this will be the last poem I read. Okay, I'll read two more poems. Thank you, Angel, for for writing my ethical, spiritual, psycho, moral compass, as you always do. For being my ethical, spiritual, psycho, moral compass. In this book, there are a series of poems called Pilgrim Bell. I'm back to the book. There are a series of poems called Pilgrim Bell, and this is one of those poems. The self I am today involves me as a lake involves its cattails. It bears me, tolerates my cotton. I would prefer not to be outlived by anyone. I reserve the right to refuse enchantment. The fables I tell always end wrong. The good archer dead by a stream. By a stream, the villains counting their gold. I am so vulnerable to visionaries and absolute certainty. Tell me how to live, and I will live that way. Thank you all so much, sincerely, for coming out. The opportunity cost of doing anything is just so profound. Today in 2022, you could be like watching literally any movie, listening to any song, watching it's dizzying and vertiginous, and that anyone chooses to do anything is occasion for gratitude. But that you chose to be here is especially one. Thank you. This is the last poem I'll read. It's called Reading Ferruxad in a Pandemic. Farrukh Ferruxad was the most important Persian Iranian poet of the 20th century. And if you are a native Farsi speaker, I apologize for what I'm about to do to our language. I am a Farsi learner, as this poem will It was my first language, but I don't need to do that. I've written several books about it. But, yeah. I'm like narrating your self-consciousness sort of like diffuses it by like 20%. Or I don't know, I'm speaking in the second person. Narrating my self-consciousness diffuses it by 20%. Reading Farrokhzad in a pandemic. Thank you all so much. The title is a lie. I can't read Farsi. Maharche roke boyad az das dehte bashim az das tadim. I can make out, we lose, we lose. I type it into a translation app. We have lost everything we need to lose. In between what I read and what is written, need, everything. Here, the waving flag. Here, the other world. Because we need mail, people die. Because we need groceries, people die. I write, we need, knowing we dilutes my responsibility, like watercolors dipped in a fast river. Get behind me, English. When I text, Maharche roke boyad az das dehte bashim az das dadim, to my dad, he writes back, we have lost whatever we had to lose. Hammering pentameter, whatever we had. People die because they look like him. My uncle jailed, his daughter killed. This is a real fact, too wretched for letters. And yet, my uncle jailed, his daughter killed. Waving world, the other flag. There is room in the language for being without language. So much of wet is cold. So much of diamond is light. I want both my countries to be right to fear me. We have lost whatever we had to lose.
Hey, everybody. I like this thing where you say the title and you say the name and people cheer. I like that. I like that. You also had something about windows and mirrors. I got a little bit of that in here, too. Let me just read it so that I don't, stray too much. So this poem by Etheridge Knight that I'm going to start with is called For Eric Dolphy. I should say Titty is the name of the sister. I don't know what that would be short for. And we are Titty. That's what we're going to be thinking about, by the time we're at the end. So this poem is For Eric Dolphy by Etheridge Knight. On flute, spinning, 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 love throughout the universe. I know exactly what you mean, man. You like Titty, my sister, who never expressed love in words like white folks always doing. She would sit in the corner and cry every time I got a whooping. I thought of that poem the first time I read John's upon reading Eric Dolphy translated even the calls of certain species of birds, which John shared with me not long after he finished it. I was already familiar with the Up Jump the Boogie, a finalist for the Kate Tufts Prize before that, and I had heard his name around in the DC circles in the 1990s We had the same friends, DJ Renegade, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Yona Harvey, Ahmad Jamal Johnson, but I did not know his poems. I didn't know him, and I really didn't know the name, John Murillo, John Murillo. I would hear it, and I just knew that there was this poet in the hemisphere that I had not crossed yet. But then he sent me this poem. I mean, I think we had crossed paths before. We had been in a few rooms together. He sent me this poem. I remember even talking with the poem with Tayimba, talking with Renegade about it, and seeing him. I know exactly what you mean, man. He was in dialogue with me and you, Eric Dolphy, trying to get it down exact. The animal racking as if itself was a car steel door, the animal in the trees reporting the animals we make of ourselves and one another. He was in dialogue with Yusuf Komenyaka's Restraint and Robert Hayden's Sculptured Form and Etheridge Knight Blood and Gwendolyn Brooks's Love for Family and Lucille Clifton's Toughness and the Candor of Sharon Olds. I know him to be both a complete American original and a brick, as Cornelius Eady writes, in a house being built by his teachers. I think I'm actually describing contemporary American poetry as I write this. Spell it as you want. A poetics of linguistic misnomers. A poetry both intimate and vast. A poetics of long-range jumpers and no-look passes and finger rolls. A triple thet poetics of dribble, pass, and shoot, here translated as motion, dribbling, vision, passing, and precision, shooting. It is emotionally and culturally and historically specific, contained while containing multitudes. And then when you look at this author photo, I think if Walt Whitman was born on the West Coast 50 years ago, carrying the history of black and brown people of the diaspora, he would wear a big biblical beard and a tilted hat and favor John. Am I wrong? Look, y'all clapping gives me a chance to pull out my edited version. I'm reading my old version. I knew the name Murillo, but I did not know his poems. When he shared that poem with me, I recognized someone born when Marvin Gaye and Nina Simone and Stevie Wonder and Cicely Tyson were at peak genius. Someone who was a guinea pig of racial integration, the children of parents who were children when Emmett Till was killed. I recognize all the sounds and colors in John's poem, but more importantly, I recognize my relationship to those sounds and colors, and it was renewed, it was revised, it was re-seen in John's poetics, which is to say, what I hunt and love in poetry, the engagement with another person's thinking and feeling, rhythm and texture. When Knight says, I know exactly what you meant, he says it like someone recognized through a window, not exactly a mirror, but for anyone reading John, it's that recognition and witness, not necessarily a commiseration, not even necessarily a comfort in the poetry, but again, a kind of recognition. What Dolphy means when he says, inside, what Dolphy and what Etheridge Knight have for us is inside the feeling. They are like their artists and siblings who never express love in words. John, Dolphy trying to get it down. He writes with Komenyaka's Restraint, as I said, a poetry both intimate and vast. It is emotionally and culturally specific. From a distance, maybe, we favor each other. Ross Gay has a poem about something like this. Black men of a certain era writing seemingly into the single slot that the Library of Congress, with Congress being synonymous with convention or delegations, try to hold us in. They all want one slot. But John carves his own notch and offers his very particular texture in contemporary American poetry. It's Elizabeth Bishop and Gil Scott-Heron. It's Biggie Smalls and Sylvia Plath. In fact, in that first poem on Confession, he is literally Biggie Plath. You got it if you know the poem I'm talking about. A gun scene, some things you never see in poetry with tenderness that you never really see in poetry. The poems call any reader to feel the texture of his language. And what we feel feels generational, immediate, cultural, familial. It's like Knight's sister in the poem for Dolphy. One sibling spinning love throughout the universe as a gesture of empathy, witness, and recognition. I know exactly what you mean. This recognition is generated. This recognition is John being his own brilliant self. So what I have here is written down. So that's all the introduction. I was like, do I want to say this other part? I'm going to say it. So what I really love about poets when I get this opportunity is just to think about the poems to come. I do think this is an important moment. I'm so glad John's here. I'm so glad we get to hear him. It sort of tells you where he's going, what he's going to be. But in the midst of writing this, I was like, what do I want to see? So it's a chance to say it. A poem maybe about the first time he heard Public Enemy. That'd be great. Any poem about Prince would be great. A poem about his favorite pair of sneakers, or important sneakers is what I have here. His favorite pair of important sneakers. A poem about the favorite item of your beloved. A poem about a ghost sibling. So I'm saying all these things because I know they're in the future, and I know they're like in that immense talent that he has. And it is about that recognition, it's about that intimacy, and it's about a texture that you have to get really close to hear and to feel. So you get ready to hear it and feel it. John, come on up here.
I've never spoken to anyone about this until now, until you. I slept once in a field beyond the riverbank, a flock of nightjars watching over me. That was the summer a farmer found his daughter hanging in the hayloft and wished for the first time he had not touched her so. I wish I could say we were close, the girl and I mean, but only knew her to wave hello and walked her once halfway up the road before turning finally into my grandmother's yard. This was Ontario, California, 1983, which is to say there was no river, and I wouldn't know a nightjar if it bit me. But the girl was real. And the day they found her, that was real. And the dress she wore, same as on our walk, periwinkle, she called it. I called it blue. Blue with bright yellow flowers all over. The dress and the flowers, they too were real. And on our walk, I remember we cut through the rail yard and came upon a dead coyote lying near the tracks, a frail and dusty heap of regret. He was companion to no one. Stone still, staring, our shadows stretched long and covering the animal. She told me something I want to say about loneliness, something I've since forgotten, the way I've forgotten, though I can see her face as if she were standing right here, her very name. Let's call her Dolores, from dolor, Spanish for anguish. And whatever the sky, however lovely that afternoon, I remember mostly the wind, how a breeze unraveled what was left of a braid, and when I tried to brush from Dolores's brow a few loose strands, how she flinched, how she ran the rest of the way home, how I never saw her after that, except when they carried her from the barn. Her periwinkle dress, her blue legs and arms, and the fields ablaze with daisies. I spent the rest of that summer in the rail yard with my dead coyote, watching trains loaded and leaving. All summer long, I'd pelt him with stones. All summer long, I'd use the stones to spell the girl's name. Dolores, maybe, in the dirt. All summer long, fire ants crawled over and between each letter. Her name, now its own small town. A season of heat and heavy rains washed my coyote to nothing, only teeth and a few stubborn bones that refused finally to go down. Weeks into autumn, someone found the father hanged from the same groaning tie beams, the hayloft black with bottleflies. But that was 1983, Ontario, California, which is to say the bottleflies are dead, so too the ants, and neither field nor barn is where I left it. I've never spoken to anyone about this until now, until you. I gathered a handful of my coyote's bones, his teeth, and strung them all on fishing wire, a talisman to ward off anguish, a talisman I hold out to you now. Please, come closer. Take this from my hand. Hey, everybody. How y'all feeling? Y'all smell water. Nobody drank their water. It's like 3. I'm going to drink one of each. Powerful. Thank you for coming out. Thank you, Bernard and Ricardo, for bringing us out. Thank you, Kaveh, for those poems, man. I've been reading you and listening to you on YouTube, but it's my first time actually sharing a space with you. Thank you, Angel, for you. You're amazing. Love you. And Terrence, my man, my brother from another mother. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm just going to read some poems and hope you like them. I'm going to read a poem called On Confessionalism that Terrence mentioned. The only thing I'll say by way of introduction, I use the term bucket in here, and bucket is actually West Coast slang for a hoopty, which is East Coast slang, I think, maybe, for an old, dilapidated jalopy, which is old-time slang for a car. So I say that because I read the poem recently, and someone came to me afterwards and was like, why did you jump in a bucket? And I was like, no. On confessionalism. Not sleepwalking, but waking still, with my hand on a gun, and the gun in a mouth, and the mouth on the face of a man on his knees. Autumn of '89, and I'm standing in a Section 8 apartment parking lot, pistol cot, and staring down at this man, then up into the mug of an old woman staring, watering the single sad flower to the left of her stoop, the flower also staring. My engine idling behind me, a slow moaning bass line, and the bark of a dead rapper nudging me on, all to say someone's brokenhearted. And this man with the gun in his mouth, this man who, like me, is really little more than a boy, may or may not have something to do with it. May or may not have said a thing or two, betrayed a secret, say, that walked my love away. And why not say it? She adored me, and I, her, more than anyone, anything in life up to then, and then still for 2 decades after, and therefore went for broke. Blacked out and woke, having gutted my piggy and pawned all my gold to buy what a homeboy said was a Beretta. Blacked out and woke, my hand on a gun, the gun in a mouth, a man who was really a boy on his knees. And because I loved the girl, I actually paused before I pulled the trigger. Once, twice, 3 times. Then panicked, not just because the gun jammed, but because What if it hadn't? Because who did I almost become there that afternoon in a Section 8 apartment parking lot, pistol cocked with the sad flowers staring? Because I knew the girl I loved, no matter how this all played out, would never have me back. Day of damaged ammo or grime that clogged the chamber. Day of faulty rods or springs come loose in my fist. Day nobody died. So why not hallelujah, say amen, or thank you? My mother sang for years of God, babes, and fools. My father, lymph node masses fading from his x-rays, said surviving one thing means another comes and kills you. He's dead, and so I trust him. Dead, and so I'd wonder years about the work I left undone. Boy on his knees, a man now, risen and likely plotting his long way back to me. Fuck it. I tucked my tool like the movie gangsters do and jumped back in my bucket. Cold enough day to make a young man weep. Afternoon when everything or nothing changed forever. The dead rapper grunted, the bass line faded, my spirits whispered something from the trees. I left, then lost the pistol in a storm drain. Somewhere between that life and this. Left the pistol in a storm drain, but never got around to wiping away the prints. On metaphor. In back of Daddy's closet, behind the cold and loaded pistol, I find a cedar box of snapshots, his company in camouflage, waving rifles, reefer, and middle fingers at the photographer, at you, and at me. And here, the full-lipped red bone he left in the world without a goodbye. Here, a strange boy with my father's forehead, same sullen eyes. Flip the photo, a stranger's name and dates that don't add, scrawled as if rushed, as if a fugitive's note slipped quick to the future. When my mother walks in, I shove the box to the back of the shelf, say nothing of the red bone or the boy. I hand her, instead, the pistol. A .45, I believe. Its cold barrel swelling in the room's bum light. When she angles it, just so, I think I see my father reflected in the steel. Wait, no, not my father. It's me. I think that's another poem that I let Terrence read early on, and he got to the end and he was like, oh yeah, that's a Yusuf thing. I was like, fuck, it is a Yusuf. I didn't realize I had done it. You know how you read somebody so much and this is part of you? I was like, yeah, I'm doing a Yusuf thing. That's what I'm doing. There's a little Yusuf in all of us. So I have good news and bad news. Good news, I'm only reading 2 more poems. The bad news is that I write really long poems. So, yeah, you won't be here for a minute. So Terrence made mention of this poem, this Eric Dolphy poem. And my wife, she says that I do too much to introduce the poem. I should just read the poem. But she didn't come tonight, so I gotta introduce the poem. I was living in DC in the mid-90s. I went there to go to Howard University. HU? Nobody? Okay. There we go. And one night I was walking home and something flew at me and attacked me. I thought it was a bat. It turned out it was a bird. And the bird, when it was flying away from me, it was going towards this car where there was this other bird that has foot caught in the door and was kind of beating itself against the car trying to get free. So the first bird was trying to get help, but it was DC in the mid-90s. And the only way to free the bird would be to open the car door, which means the bird would have been gone, the alarm would have been going off, and I would have been holding the car door in DC in the 90s. So I kept walking, and the bird kept flying after me. At some point, it gave up on me. And I wanted to write that poem, but I didn't have the chops for a number of years, and I still don't know that I had the chops when I came to it. But I was reading an article about the jazz musician Eric Dolphy, and in the article, it listed one of his practices where he would go into the forests or into the park, and he would listen to birds singing, and he would transcribe the bird calls. He said there was something earnest, something honest in their song he wanted to get into his own music. And when I read that article, it drew me back to the birds in the 1990s, and the poem kind of started to take shape at that point. It is a long poem, so please stay with me. Upon reading that Eric Dolphy transcribed even the calls of certain species of birds, I think first of two sparrows I met when walking home late night years ago in another city not unlike this. The one bird frantic, attacking, I thought, the way she swooped down, circled my head and flailed her wings in my face. How she seemed to scream each time I swung. How she dashed back and forth between me and a blood-red Corolla parked near the opposite curb. How, finally, I understood. I spied another bird, also calling, his foot inexplicably caught in the car's closed door, beating his whole bird body against it, trying, it appeared, to bang himself free. And who knows how long he'd been there, flailing. Who knows? He and the other I mistook at first for a bat. They called to me. Something between squawk and chirp, something between song and prayer, to do something, anything. And like any good God, I disappeared. Not indifferent exactly, but with things to do, and most likely on my way home from another heartbreak. Call it 1997, and say I'm several thousand miles from home, by which I mean those were the days I made of everyone a love song, by which I mean I was lonely and unrequited. But that's not quite it either. Truth is, I did manage to find a few to love me, but couldn't always love them back. The Rasta law professor, the firefighter's wife, the burlesque dancer whose daughter blackened drawings with M's to mean the sky was full of birds the day her daddy died. I think his widow said he drowned one morning on a fishing trip. Anyway, I'm digressing. But if you asked that night, did I mention it was night? Why I didn't even try to jimmy the lock to spring the sparrow, I couldn't say truthfully that it had anything to do with envy. with wanting a woman to plead as deeply for me as these sparrows did, one for the other. No, I'd have said something instead about the neighborhood itself. The car thief shot a block and a half east the week before, or about the men I came across nights prior, sweat-slicked and shirtless, grappling in the middle of the street. The larger ones, chest pressed to the back of the smaller, bruised and bleeding both. I know you thought this was about birds, but stay with me. I left them both in the street, the same street where I'd leave the sparrows, the men embracing, and for all one knows, they could have been lovers. The one whispering an old, old tune into the ear of the other, baby, baby, don't leave me this way. I left the men where I'd leave the sparrows and their song. And as I walked away, I heard one of the men call to me, please, or help, or brother, or some such. And I didn't break stride. Not one bit. It's how I've learned to save myself. Let me try this another way. Call it 1977 and say I'm back west, South Central Los Angeles, my mother and father at it again, but this time in the street, broad daylight, and all the neighbors watching. One, I think his name was Sonny, runs out from his duplex to pull my father off. You see where I'm going with this. My mother crying out, fragile as a sparrow. Sonny fighting my father, fragile as a sparrow. And me, years later, trying to get it all down. As much for you, I'm saying, as for me. Sonny catches a left, lies flat on his back, blood starting to pool, and his own wife wailing, my mother wailing, and traffic backed now half a block. Horns, whistles, and soon sirens. 1977, summer, and all the trees full of birds. Hundreds, I swear. And since I'm the one writing it, I'll tell you they were crying. Which brings me back to Dolphy and his transcribing. The jazz man, I think, wanted only to get it down pure, to get it down exact. The animal racking itself against the car's steel door. The animals in the trees reporting. The animals we make of ourselves and one another, flailing, failing. Stay with me now. Days after the dust-up, my parents took me to the park. And in this park was a pond. And in this pond were birds, not sparrows, but swans. And my father spread a blanket and brought from a basket some apples and a paring knife. Summertime. My mother wore sunglasses and long sleeves. My father, now sober, cursed himself for leaving the radio. But my mother forgave him and said, as she caressed the back of his hand, that we could just listen to the swans. And we listened, and I watched two birds coupling, one beating its wings as it mounted the other. Summer, 1977, I listened and watched. When my parents made love late into that night, I covered my ears in the next room, scanning the encyclopedia for swans. It meant nothing to me, then at least. But did you know the collective noun for swans is a lamentation? And is a lamentation not its own species of song? What a woman wails, punch drunk in the street, or what a widow might sing, learning her man was drowned by swans, a lamentation of them. Imagine the capsized boat, the panicked man struck about the eyes, nose, and mouth each time he comes up for air. Imagine the birds coasting away and the waters suddenly calm. Either trumpet swans or mutes. The dead man's wife running for help, crying to any who'd listen. A lamentation, and a city busy saving itself. I'm digressing, sure. But did you know that to digress means to stray from the flock? When I left my parents' house, I never looked back. By which I mean I made like a god and disappeared. As when I left the sparrows and the copulating swans. As when someday I'll leave this city, its every flailing, its every animal song. Thank you guys for listening. This is fun. It's good to be back and with people. You can't, like Kaveh was right, you can't really see too well, but I see masks, and this is special. I want to dedicate the reading of this last poem to the students that Kaveh and I had a chance to meet with earlier. For an interview for this podcast called Blank Verse, yes? Yes, Blank Verse. And it's available on Spotify and iTunes and Apple something? Yeah, wherever fine podcasts are found. And Kaveh said something when we were interviewing to the students. He said, I wasn't doing that as much when I was your age. And I was like, yeah, I was doing not these things, but I was doing a lot when I was their age. This poem's called On Negative Capability. And the poets in the room probably know this term, negative capability. It was coined by the English poet John Keats in a letter to his brother. And for most of the letter, he's just kind of gossiping about this dinner party he had gone to and who was there and who, said what to whom. And towards the end of the letter, in the last paragraph, I think, he says to his brother, I think I discovered what it means or what's required to be a person of achievement in letters. And he says a negative capability, which he defined as the ability to exist in uncertainties or mysteries without any irritable reaching after fact or reason. The ability to exist in uncertainties or mysteries without any irritable reaching after fact or reason. So basically the not just a comfort, but a leaning into the unknown, yeah? I take to that as a writer, and I encourage it in my students. When I look back on my life, I realized that for years, I was living Keats's maxim. One of the things my buddy and I used to do, he's no longer with us, we used to borrow his mom's car and just go driving down these back roads in Southern California where there's no lights, and he would cut the headlights off, and we just go for what seemed like forever in complete darkness. That's what's happening in this poem. Thank you again for listening. On negative capability. White walls, mud flaps, late night howling down a dark dirt road. Headlights killed, and so the world gone black but for the two blunts lit, illuminating JoJo's fake gold grin, one girl each screaming from the back seat. We raced the red moon, raw dogged the stars, his mama's car, my daddy's gun, public enemy number one. 17 and simple, we wanna be hard rocks through rude boy fingers and gang signs at the sky. Blinded by the hot smoke rising like the sirens in the subwoofers. Blinded by the crotch funk rising from all our eager selves, we mashed in perfect murk a city block's length at least toward God knows what, when, or why. Neither JoJo nor I nor our two dates screaming had a clue or even care what the black ahead held. Come, road, come, night, come, blackness and the cold, come, havoc, come, mayhem, come, down, God, and see us, come, bloodshot moon running alongside the ride as if to warn us away from, as if to run us straight into some jagged tooth and jackal-throated roadside ditch. When JoJo gunned the gas, we pushed into that night like a nest of sleeping jaybirds, shaken loose and plunging. Between our screams, a hush so heavy we could almost hear what was waiting in the dark. Thank you.